This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining us today is Mark Rotherer, the President and CEO of Silence Therapeutics, listed on the NASDAQ with the ticker SLN. And I believe that they were AIM listed, but they have moved over to the NASDAQ, and the CEO and President joins us today. Mark, how are you?
Very well, thank you. I'm calling you from Hoboken on the East Coast, US.
On the East Coast, US. Well, good. Thank you very much for your time today. Could I ask you, first of all, Mark, to just give me perhaps the high-level overview of the company, what you're all about, and what differentiates you among other companies operating in this space, that is the siRNA space?
Yes, well, very interesting. The company's actually been around for 20 years. It's really had its roots in Europe, in both Germany, Berlin, and in the London area in the UK, and is now very much a global company with a US presence as well. And over this 20-year period, we've developed great expertise and profound know-how in the field of mRNA interference. Mm-hmm. And what that means is you get disease-causing proteins produced, and these can cause disease, as I said. And the idea is the technology is designed to knock out or silence the production of these disease-causing proteins because of mutations, genetic mutations, and doing that at the mRNA level. So mRNA interference is what this is about. Of course, mRNA has had a lot of attention because of its application to vaccination, but mRNA is also of great interest when it comes to therapeutics. So what we do is we design these short interfering RNA molecules, hence siRNA, that knock down or silence the production of these disease-causing proteins. So it's incredibly precise medicine, and it's genetic medicine. And maybe the last thing to say as an introduction, we can do this through the simple administration of something like 2 to 4 injections a year to control a genetic condition.
Okay. So, of course, as you say, RNA has come into the focus very recently with, of course, the coronavirus. And some people are perhaps suspicious of it. But as you say, it's been in development for over 20 years, and your company has been operating in the space for all that time as well.
Yes, and look, mRNA has been known for a very, very long time. Essentially, your DNA, which has the genetic information, then translates a particular gene into mRNA, which is the template that's used for producing the protein. And for the most part, we're doing that all the time, producing essential proteins. Okay. But sometimes, for whatever reason, there may be a genetic mutation in the DNA. That gets transcribed then into mRNA, which is still, carrying that genetic mutation, and that can cause disease. So what you want to be able to do is to target that specific, genetically mutated mRNA to be able to sort of knock it down or stop or silence the production of that disease-causing protein, and to give, patients and families, therefore, better and longer lives.
Mm-hmm. So you are literally silencing that gene in order to stop the disease that derives from that occurring in the first place.
Exactly. That's exactly what this is about. And so over 20 years, we've developed the know-how to design these molecules to be very specific, to provide, good safety profiles, but also the sort of efficacy in the sense of the amount of knockdown or silencing that can be achieved by, applying a simple injection.
Are there specific diseases that you're targeting with your development of your products?
So we've produced a platform now that's called the Gold Platform. It is specifically targeting disease-causing proteins in the liver.
Okay.
And there are 14,000 genes expressed in the liver. So as you can imagine, sometimes some of those go wrong. And so what we're doing is this gold platform we think has tremendous potential. We've developed a number of partnerships with key pharmaceutical companies that are interested in partnerships for targets of interest from their perspective. But we've also developed a pipeline of our own, which is focused on a certain number of diseases of interest to us. Specifically, our lead compounds are called SLN 360 for a cardiovascular indication, and SLN 124 for a range of hematological conditions. But just to expand on that just a little bit more, the hybrid model, as we call it, which is sort of 50% serving the needs of our partners and 50% developing our own pipeline, I think is a really nice way of making the most of the gold platform. So on the partnership side, we're pleased to have companies like AstraZeneca, Mallinckrodt, and Hansoh as partners. So we have up to 16 programs that we're developing for our partners. And then on our own proprietary side, as I said, we have SLN 360 and SLN 124. And then we have a number of other programs that we've not yet disclosed publicly.
Okay. So I understand that you recently shared that your product SLN 360 was accepted as a late breaker to ACC. Can you share perhaps why this data is important and what the market potential is?
Absolutely. So the proof of the platform, as it were, is in the eating. So it's actually in the data that's generated in the clinic, looking at patients. Now, last year we had our first ever clinical data from the gold platform. It was in the SLN 124 program. It was healthy volunteer data, and it really demonstrated what we were expecting. This year, we have two sets of data coming out, one for SLN 360, that's coming out this quarter, and it's for a cardiovascular condition associated with elevated lipoprotein A, which is genetically produced. And then later in the year, in quarter 3, we have patient data from the SLN 124 program in thalassemia and myodysplastic syndrome. So the relevance of this first data, SLN 360, is firstly that this is associated with people who are living with an elevated level of lipoprotein A. And lipoprotein A has been shown to be correlated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease. And, you and I are all aware of LDL cholesterol and statins for managing cholesterol. But the problem is with Lp(a) is that this is a genetic condition and there is no treatment today for it. You can't manage it through lifestyle change or diet or exercise, for example, and you can't manage it using conventional LDL lowering therapies because, again, this is a genetic condition.
Okay.
And believe it or not, this condition affects up to 20% of the world's population that are living today with an elevated level of lipoprotein A. So it's a huge area, and a lot of very large companies are already embarking on finding a solution to lipoprotein A.
Okay.
And we happen to be the third in line in the world with a treatment in the clinic. And so the relevance of the late breaker that went out today as a press release is that this data is coming out, and it's actually been accepted as a late breaking news at the American Cardiology Conference at the beginning of April.
Okay. And you say the treatment is in clinic. What stage is this treatment in its process to getting it regulated and on the market?
It's in phase 1.
Okay.
So it's the early stages. But what is unique about siRNA is that you get a very, very quick read in phase 1 about whether or not the molecule is doing what you expect. So what you hope to see from a study like this is a profound reduction in lipoprotein A levels in the serum. what you also hope to see is a long duration of action, so that potentially one single injection could cover anything from, say, 3 to 6 months. And what you hope to see is a good safety profile. So those are sort of things that you're looking for in a treatment of this nature that's directed at prevention of cardiovascular disease due to this genetic condition.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And your other product then, that's SLN124. What can you tell us about that then?
So SLN124 has been developed for a range of hematological conditions, such as thalassemia, myelodysplastic syndrome, polycythemia vera. These are probably all indications that you're not that familiar with. But on the other hand, these are real problems associated with patients around the world, and they're generally rarer conditions. What we have in SLN124 is a very interesting mechanism that controls iron levels in the body. And in these hematological diseases, they're really associated with iron dysregulation. And what we're aiming to do is to help normalize iron levels in the body and therefore help patients with this range of conditions through this particular program. So we're in phase 1 as well with patients, patient studies ongoing in thalassemia and MDS. And as I mentioned last year, we demonstrated that this program is working from a mechanistic point of view in man, because we shared data from a healthy volunteer study. Mm-hmm. So now what we're looking for is data from the thalassemia and MDS studies in the third quarter.
Okay. So both of these are in phase 1, and clearly that is a big milestone when that completes. Do you have any idea on timing of when the trial might be complete?
So the phase 1 single ascending dose study for SLN360, the readout this quarter is for a period of 150 days following the injections that these patients had. We will continue to extend the follow-up of these patients actually to 365 days, because as I mentioned to you, one of the things about siRNA, our approach, is that the duration of action can be quite long, which is quite favorable for patients so that they don't have to take treatment very often. So for SLN124, what we call the single ascending dose study will also read out in the third quarter this year. So that's the end of that phase of the study. Okay. We're then going to be looking at multiple ascending dose portions of the phase 1 study, where you're looking at more than one injection over time, and just looking at what does that mean over a period of time.
Okay. And I wonder if you can perhaps give me a sense of the market opportunity here, and perhaps share a bit more about your strategy and how you intend to grasp that opportunity.
So for SLN360, as I mentioned, we're looking to address a cardiovascular condition that affects up to 20% of the world's population with elevated lipoproteinase. So it's a really very significant market. There are other companies like Novartis and Amgen that are a bit ahead of us, and we're third in line looking to address this market. The market actually is very similar in size to the statin market, and just to remind you, there were 12 statins launched into the statin market, and some of those were very, very significant products. So we think we're very well placed by being third in line with actually the second siRNA approach coming to market as well. And so, if you think about that equivalence, 12 statins, we're third in line. I think there's a tremendous opportunity for this program. And what we're also saying is that, we're a biotech company, and we want to do the best for this program. So we're likely to look for a large global partner for this program after the phase 1 readout and before the phase 3 initiation, just to make sure that we're doing the very best to get this ultimately to patients.
Okay. So I had a look at your market cap. It's 700 US, roughly speaking, about 500, half a million British pounds. You feel there's still a lot of value growth perhaps to be had?
I do, and I think the path ahead is actually very clear. You know, we do have a few other peers in the field of siRNA. I mean, Alnylam is the company that's led the way. They're, I think, today about a 15 billion market cap. Arrowhead's another company that's somewhere in the 5 to 6 billion, and you know, here we are at 700 million. So I think the path ahead is simply that we maximize the gold opportunity, the gold platform, through this hybrid strategy that I mentioned, through partnerships, but also developing our own pipeline. And the more we add into that pipeline, I think the more potential value we're creating. And what is, I think, rather unique about this siRNA platform is it's been demonstrated across this peer group that I've just described that the probability of success in the clinic is substantially higher than the industry average. So if you have a validated target you're going after and you go into the clinic, you know, compared to the industry average, you are much more likely to be successful, you know, bringing this through the clinic to regulatory approval and launch. And so I think that's why you're seeing these substantial valuations for this area.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time today. I do just have one final thought, and it's just on the RNA technology. Now that it's in the public domain, people are more familiar with it. It's kind of had a huge trial through the whole coronavirus epidemic. Do you feel that this technology and the stuff that you're working on could fundamentally transform medicine and the way we treat people with diseases?
I do. And as you know, we're not ourselves working on vaccines, but we're working on therapeutics. And there are a lot of rare and less rare genetically based conditions. And, you know, this is because there's a mutation in the DNA that can lead to, you know, disease. And I'm having this exquisite ability to target that mRNA associated with that mutated gene in such a straightforward way is, I think, very encouraging. And the fact that you can get that precision genetic approach with simply, in our case, you know, a few injections a year to manage it, I think means it's also something that can be used relatively widely and relatively simply. That's the potential.
Okay. Well, Mark Rotherer, the President and CEO of Silence Therapeutics, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mark. Much appreciated.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.